Welcome to the Chronological Bible Journey, where we discover God's whole story one day at a time. I'm Derek. I'm here with Michael, and we are looking at Numbers 27 through 29. It is day 67. So, Michael, let's begin.
All right. Hey, today we see there are a couple of situations with Moses, and then there's a lot of discussion about the different festivals on the Jewish calendar. And since we covered those festivals a whole bunch back on day 55, we're not going to look at them here. But if you got any questions, feel free to go back and listen to the episode on day 55. Now, we see two situations involving Moses in our reading today. First, it involved the daughters of Zelophehad.
Good job.
Thank you. Try saying that 5 times fast. And they brought an interesting case to Moses. Now, their father had died in the wilderness, as did everybody in his generation, but he had 5 daughters and no sons. Now, according to the law, and according to most of ancient societies at that point, all inheritances went through the sons. They never went through the daughters. Women were very much second-class citizens at that point. And so they brought this case before him and said, hey, we will have no land when we go into the promised land because our father died with no sons. Please let us have that inheritance. Now, this is a tough situation, and Moses did not know the answer to the situation. So what did he do? Now it says in Numbers 27:5, so Moses brought their case to the Lord. I love this. This is such a great example for us. Moses faced a situation that he did not know the answer, so he did the one thing he knew what to do. He took it to the Lord, and the Lord answered.
Yep.
The Lord answered his question and answered and gave a solution to this challenging situation. And what we see is that he elevated women in the culture. He added to the law to say that, hey, inheritance will go through the son, but if there is no son, then daughters can receive that inheritance, which was a massive change and a difference from many of the cultures around them. And so I loved the example that Moses gave us today. Whenever you are facing something, what do? You go to the Lord. Mm-hmm. Now, for us, we don't get that audible response, from the Lord when we have questions or what are we supposed to do. And so many years ago, my wife and I, Derek, when we face big decisions, and we faced multiple ones of those throughout the years, we do 4 things, and we do them all at the same time. We kind of put them together. First, we seek God through prayer. We're going to talk to him, and we're going to allow him to speak to us through his Spirit. Second of all, we read God's Word, and we don't just pick different sections of the Bible and be like, oh, I'm just going to open up and go here. We just keep reading wherever we're at. And then third, we receive wise counsel from God's people. We're going to find a couple of people who we think are very godly and that are very wise, and we're going to talk through our situation with them to see what they think. And then last of all, we examine our circumstances that the Lord has allowed. And what we have found is that whenever we go through that whole process, that the Lord will confirm his direction. And we have made many large decisions over the years, and we do not regret a single one. When we look back, we don't regret a single one because the Lord has always been faithful to guide us in the right direction.
He's never going to lead you astray. I think when we read that verse that Moses brought the case to the Lord, most people would say, I do that. But I think oftentimes it's just out of order. People try to do everything they can in whatever situation that is, and when it doesn't work out, then they
go to God at the last second.
And I've done that many times.
But or you throw up a prayer on the way out the door.
Right, but
give me wisdom today.
But you're already have your plan that you're going to do.
Exactly.
And basically you're asking God to bless it. So I love this example.
Yeah, and whenever we give God time and engage with him over an extended amount of time, he will give us a direction.
That's good.
So that's always the process that we go through in our household. Now, then there was a second situation, and this one was probably even harder for Moses because it involved him personally. Now, it's getting close to the time we've talked about in the last couple of days for the people to enter into the promised land. But because of Moses' disobedience to God's directions at Kadesh, where he hit the rock instead of speaking to it, he's not going to get to go in. Something we didn't talk about a couple of days ago is that that God gave him a consequence for that decision and said, you will not enter into the promised land. Yeah. And so now he is coming face to face with that. And the Lord has taken him up. And can you imagine, Derek, if you're in Moses' spot, what it would be like to know, hey, you're about to come to the end of your life. You have dedicated 40 plus years to this group of people, but you are not going to get to enter the promised land.
You know, he had to, there was regret. There was probably some self-pity going on. But just to look back and say, if I just had obeyed, there's consequences to our sin.
Yeah. And so he was a regular person like you and me and everybody else. There had to be so many conflicting emotions in that point. But let's see how he handles this. Read for us Numbers 27:15 through 17.
It says, Then Moses said to the Lord, O Lord, you are the God who gives breath to all creatures. Please appoint a new man as leader for the community. Give them someone who will guide them wherever they go and will lead them into battle, so the community of the Lord will not be like sheep without a shepherd.
In the face of such crushing disappointment, Moses is not focused on himself. He is focused on the people and what the people need. He is not wallowing in self-pity. He is thinking to their future and going, they need a leader. They need someone who will guide them. God, give them that person, or they're going to be like a sheep without a shepherd. Now, what happens to sheep if they don't have a shepherd?
They are in trouble.
They are in trouble.
They scatter. They're, predators, all of that.
Yeah. Like they will wander off.
Yeah.
They will get eaten. They are so dumb, they'll get stuck in bushes. All these things. And Moses was like, if they don't have a leader, that's what's going to happen to them. They've had a leader and look what they've been doing. Just imagine if they don't have one. God, please give them someone. What an amazing example of not caring for yourself primarily, but putting your care for other people ahead of yourself.
I love that you read these 3 verses because they would be 3 verses easily to skip over there and not stop and think that this would probably, for me personally, would have been the time where I would have been like, all right, Lord, let's rethink the punishment. Could there be anything else? At least let me get to go into the promised land.
Can you at least change your mind for 5 seconds so I can at least experience
plead his case. Is there another disciplinary action we can take here?
Yeah.
But instead, he already knows. He knows that he sinned.
We see that years later in the missions era, Paul wrote in Philippians 2:4 something very similar to how Moses reacted here. And he said, don't look out only for your interest, but take an interest in others too. Moses lived that out in this moment. He wasn't consumed with himself. He wanted what was best for the people around him. And if you're at home, do you think about yourself all the time? Derek, if I'm going to be honest, I think about myself way too much.
I do too.
And I am the center of my universe way too much. But God calls us to put other people in the center of our universe before ourselves. So I'm just going to challenge you. Who can you put before yourself today? And who can you think about instead of yourself today?
I don't know about anybody else listening, Michael, but you certainly stepped on my toes today. I needed to hear this because I do quickly and easily get focused on myself. So thank you so much for walking us through the text today. And thank you for listening today. Maybe you have a friend that could be encouraged by listening to today's episode. We want to encourage you to share it with them today and see how the Lord may use it to bless their lives. Thanks for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you tomorrow.